after a viral clip of Kodak Black got folks questioning his state of mind. Boosie jumped in with a post saying Kodak needs help. And that's when things turned personal. Y'all don't even know going on, so why y'all speaking on I don't know you snitching? Kodak decided to address it his own way, and his next move didn't just hit different, but caught everybody slipping. The clash. In February 2026, a video dropped of Kodak Black performing at a show in Texas where he was looking real out of it and had to be held up by security. Word was he showed up 9 whole hours late, and that footage hit every timeline within hours. Boosie peeked the clip. He hopped in the comments talking about dude need help for, and just like that, their whole beef was back on Front Street. Now, this was not the first time Boosie came out his face about Kodak like that. He been on the same wave for months. He'd been on it for years, and every single time he runs his mouth, Kodak gets on his head about it. Kodak got on camera and addressed Boosie dead on about the whole pattern of speaking on him in public. I'm a realist, bro. Ain't I'm a real lit. Kodak was letting it be known. He sees himself a certain type of way. And Boosie going on the internet painting him as some kind of loose cannon did not line up with how Yak viewed himself. But what he said next is what had the whole hood talking. You snitching. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of bro, come on, man. Now, that word right there, that's a heavy one. In the streets. Calling somebody a snitch is basically a death sentence on your character. Kodak was not saying Boosie was sitting down with the feds, or nothing like that. He was saying Boosie was putting his personal business on blast for the whole world to see. And in Kodak's eyes, that was its own kind of ratting. He was telling Boosie that running your mouth about another man's life is habits. What he's going through on the internet of all places, that's a violation. Period. Stop playing with me on this internet. I swear to God. For real. For real. That was Kodak keeping it 100. No subliminals. No coded messages. None of that. He looked dead into the camera and told Boosie to fall back. Then he doubled down, explaining that he don't be in nobody else's mixed away Boosie stays in his. Try to see I don't be trying to kill my business. Kodak was drawing a line in the sand right there. He was saying he don't hop on the internet telling the world what's going on in Boo's crib. So why Boosie keep doing him like that? And then Yak made it real personal. He brought up his own family's experience with people running their mouths. It's my brother got told I got told when I was a young carjacking. What is that? Was Kodak tying Boosie's public commentary to something way deeper than rap beef. He felt that in his chest. He was not treating this like some little industry back and forth. He was treating it like somebody was exposing him. And he compared the whole thing to getting told on in the streets, which where they come from is about as foul as it gets. Boosie, for his part, had already been addressing the situation. He had been on camera acknowledging that fans were writing him hard about speaking on various topics, including the Young Thug situation, and that Kodak had been coming at his neck. But Boosie said he was dealing with way bigger problems. Like all the underscore I'm going through right now, man, I shouldn't even have no energy for this, bro. I'm going through real gangster underscore man. Boosie had the feds on his back at the time. He had federal gun charges hanging over his head with sentencing pulling up fast. He said he ain't have the bandwidth for whatever Kodak had going on. I can't be going back and forth on no internet. But especially with why, and then Boosie dropped a bar that added a whole different layer to the situation. He said him and Kodak were both trying to eat off the same plate from the same people. You know I'm trying to get the same thing you got from the same people. And you know that, bro. Come on type of underscore. You that line right there suggested Boosie was not just coming at Kodak as an op. He was coming at him as somebody who felt like Kodak should understand their shared position in the game. But Kodak was not hearing none of that. Kodak saw Boosie as somebody who kept putting his name in his mouth for no reason, and he wanted all of it to stop. I give about you and cream you. That was the bar that summed up Kodak's whole stance in this clash. He did not see Boosie as somebody with the juice to be speaking on his life. He saw him as a rapper. Full stop. This beef was not about who had the better discography. It was about one man telling another man to stop running his mouth in public, and the other man refusing to pipe down. This particular round in February 2026 was just the latest chapter in the book. But this did not start here. The roots of this whole situation trace back to 2023. And what went down that year set every single thing in motion where it all began. before all the shots fired and the diss tracks and the public call-outs that got everybody choosing sides, Bowie and Kodak had something that looked a lot more like mutual respect. It was a real OG to young bull type of dynamic. Boosie had spoken highly about Kodak's raw talent in interviews. That natural gift, that sauce you either got or you don't. He even recounted a time when he pulled Kodak aside and advised him to get out of Florida, telling him the environment around him was toxic and warning him about the drama that kept following him everywhere he stepped. It was the kind of real talk that an older head gives to a younger cat who is too deep in the trenches to see the bigger picture, dropped out of genuine care with a full understanding that the young homie might not listen, but needs to hear regardless. And Kodak, to his credit, acknowledged this dynamic later on down the line. In his own bars, he would spit that he used to look up to Boosie, a line that would eventually get weaponized and flipped into a disc. But at one point in time, before all the smoke, it was just the truth. There was a mentorship vibe between them, even if it was informal, even if they were not kicking it every day. That whole dynamic got torched in the summer of 2023. And the reason was one name that carries more baggage than an airport carousel in hip-hop culture, Tekashi 69. In July 2023, Kodak linked up with 6ix9ine on the track Shakalaka. Now, in the culture, 6ix9ine had cemented himself as the most high-profile rat in modern rap history. Homie took the stand in federal court and pointed the finger at his own day ones. And for the overwhelming majority of the hip-hop world that made him radioactive, somebody no artist with any real street credibility should be anywhere near. The collaboration was mad polarizing. But for Boosie, this was not one of those agree to disagree situations. This was a matter of the code. Boosie aired out his disgust almost immediately. He went scorched earth on Kodak for the collab and made it crystal clear he was not giving him any type of pass. Not for a bag, not for clout, not for nothing. His words were pointed and deeply personal. He basically told Kodak that no amount of bread could ever justify getting in the studio with somebody who violated the most fundamental rule of the streets. Boosie went even harder than that, questioning Kodak's street credentials altogether, suggesting that Kodak had never truly lived the life he was rapping about in his music. Coming from somebody like Boosie, a man who did real time behind bars and has long been held up as one of the most authentic voices to ever come out the South, that accusation hit different. For Boosie, this was not just about one throwaway collab. It was about what that collab represented, a willingness to sell out everything you stand for just to get a check. Kodak fired back by reposting a video calling Boosie a clown, brushing off the whole critique as an old head trying to stay relevant by policing what the younger generation does with their career. It was the first real exchange of smoke between them, and it established a pattern that would run on repeat for years to come. Boosie plays the role of the accountability police, and Kodak questions whether Boosie even has the standing to be checking anybody in the first place. The tension ratcheted up mad quick after that initial back and forth. By August 2023, Boosie had taken the whole situation to wax. He dropped a diss track called Ungrateful, going directly at Kodak for the 6ix9ine collaboration and accusing him of trashing his own reputation through reckless moves and bogus associations. The track was raw and uncut, carrying the weight of somebody who felt personally disrespected by what he had witnessed go down. For Boosie, Kodak was not just making a bad business move. He was violating the culture they both grew up in. Ungrateful was Bowie channeling all that frustration into a record, and it marked the first time either of them used bars as a direct weapon in the beef. Then the bread situation entered the chat. In November 2023, Boosie accused Kodak of jacking his sound, sampling his music without proper clearance or any kind of respect, adding a whole financial dimension to what had already become an extremely personal war. For Boosie, this was just another layer of disrespect stacked on top of everything else. It was not enough that Kodak had crossed a major line by working with a known snitch. Now, he was also eating off Boosie's own catalog while they were beefing. The sampling accusation threw money into a situation that had been purely about principles up to that point, making the whole thing exponentially harder to squash because now Boosie's pockets were involved on top of his pride. All the smoke from 2023 bled straight into the following year with zero cooldown. In February 2024, Kodak slid back with a track called 11 a.m. in Malibu that had a disc aimed dead at Boosie. The joint rekindled everything right when the embers were just starting to go cold. Boosie responded quick, defending his position, and going right back to the same talking points. Kodak was fumbling the bag on his own talent. Kodak was making terrible decisions. Kodak was hurting himself worse than any Opie ever could. By March 2024, Boosie was telling anybody with a microphone or a camera that Kodak's career had been on a downward spiral ever since the 6ix9ine link-up, framing the whole trajectory of Kodak's recent run as a textbook case of self-sabotage. There was a brief window in 2020 where it looked like things might simmer down. Boosie went public and said he was deadening the beef, stating that he wishes the best for Kodak and getting on the media for constantly pitting black artists against each other. It was a mature stand-up move. The kind of olive branch that could have buried the whole thing if both sides had been willing to let it ride. But that truce was built on sand, and it was not going to survive what came next, because the 6ix9ine collab was just a match that lit it off. The gasoline that kept this fire raging was something else entirely. Something that Boosie had been watching with growing alarm for a long time, the drug dimension. If the 6ix9ine collaboration was the event that wrecked the relationship between Boosie and Kodak, the substance abuse issue is a thread that runs underneath every single exchange that followed. It is a subtext behind damn near every comment Boosie has ever made about Kodak. The unspoken reason behind every time he has labeled Kodak's behavior crazy, and the driving force behind those moments where Boosie has shifted gears from being an Opie to sounding more like an OG on the block who has been through the same struggle and can see somebody else headed straight for the same ditch. The most vivid example of this whole dynamic dropped when Kodak caught a charge and the details of his arrest started circulating. Boosie spoke on it during an interview, and the way he addressed the whole thing revealed that complicated cocktail of humor and real concern that has been the hallmark of his side in this entire war. Kodak Black just got arrested. Yeah, apparently he was high off something. He fell asleep in his car when the police pulled up. The details were absolutely wild. Boosie kept going with what was being reported, and the picture he was painting was the type of thing that lands somewhere between heartbreaking and straight up unbelievable. They say that he had a mouthful of cocaine. Yeah, if that video comes out, if they had a body cam and you see Kodak, Boosie was damn near speechless at the visual. He acknowledged that the whole situation had the makings of something the internet was about to run into the ground. Slack with a mouthful of cocaine. That is going to be the biggest meme of 2024. But even as he was half laughing at how ridiculous the whole thing sounded, Boosie caught himself mid-sentence. He pulled back from the jokes, and what came through in its place was something that sounded a whole lot more like genuine sadness. I will laugh because I don't laugh at people's troubles, bro. I got my own. That push and pull between clowning the situation and recognizing it as another man's rock bottom is the same tension that has followed Boosie through this entire beef from day one. He has cracked jokes about Kodak. He has roasted him publicly. But he has also over and over again said that at the end of the day, what he really wants is for Kodak to get right. Whether that concern is 100% genuine or partially for the cameras is something that fans and commentators have gone back and forth about endlessly. But Boosie has never once stopped saying it. Then came the moment that cranked the absurdity up to a level nobody could have predicted after the arrest. Kodak hopped on Instagram and addressed the cocaine allegations himself. And what came out of his mouth left people more confused than the original mugshot. He said that he doesn't do cocaine, he does meth and perks. Like this is somehow better. He said, I ain't no junkie. The internet went crazy. Kodak's whole defense, denying the coke while casually admitting to meth and Percocets, became an instant moment that summed up everything his critics had been hollering about regarding his judgment. It was a kind of statement that somehow made the original accusation look minor by comparison, because the so-called rebuttal was so baffling that it completely overshadowed whatever point Yak had been trying to get across. Boosie did not let that slide without weighing in, and his reaction carried the exhausted energy of a man watching somebody drive themselves off a cliff in slow motion while swearing they got the wheel steady, even with all the static popping between them. Even with the diss tracks dropping and the insults flying and the social media warfare raging on every platform, Boosie held firm that his stance on Kodak substance issues was not about chasing clicks. It was about pattern recognition. Like I told y'all before, man, even with me and Kodak head, I won't see him get help, bro. That line matters because it shows Boosie holding two completely contradictory positions at the same time and feeling no type of way about it. He is beefing with Kodak, and he is also worried about the man. In his mind, those two things do not cancel each other out. He can think Kodak is dead wrong for coming at him, and he can also think Kodak is spiraling, and he can put both of those things on the internet without feeling like one undermines the other. Boosie went even deeper, breaking down exactly how he recognized the signs. He described watching Kodak in various interviews and catching physical tells that somebody familiar with the life of addiction would clock immediately. Hey, look, I know that shiny skin. What does shiny skin mean? What do you mean? It's like a drug addict. Boosie was not speaking on this like some outsider who Googled the symptoms. He was speaking on it like somebody who recognized those physical markers because he had clocked them before on people around him and on the man staring back at him in the mirror during his own worst chapters. He referenced seeing Kodak on shows like Drink Champs and No Jumper. And the way Kodak was presenting himself physically just confirmed what Boosie's gut had been telling him all along. I've been around them. I've been around them dudes. And then Boosie dropped the most revealing thing he said in the entire interview. He straight up admitted he had been in that same dark place himself. He said he used to be on PCP Angel Dust, and he recognized in Kodak's behavior and speech patterns the exact same things he had gone through during his own lowest points. That admission flipped the entire conversation from one man checking another into something way more raw. A man looking at somebody younger and seeing a reflection of his own past staring right back at him. Whether Kodak received it that way is a whole different story. But for Boosie, the drug dimension of this beef was never just ammunition for a diss track. It was the beating heart of his frustration. Watching somebody with God-given undeniable talent choose the substances over stability and not be able to do a damn thing about it except talk. The Young Thug situation and the snitching accusations. If the drug issue provided the emotional undercurrent running beneath this entire war, the September 2025 incident involving Young Thug injected it a completely different kind of venom, one rooted in the most sacred and most treacherous word in all of hip-hop, snitching. In September 2025, allegations have been floating around for months about Young Thug's conduct during his RICO case. The streets and the internet were buzzing with rumors that Thug had been cooperating with the authorities. A claim that split the hip-hop world clean down the middle between people who believed it and people who refused to even entertain the thought. Into that charged atmosphere, Kodak Black stepped forward and publicly questioned why Boosie, a man who had built his entire brand on being the one who keeps it real and calls everything out, had been conspicuously quiet on the whole matter. Now, that was a calculated move if there ever was one. Kodak was not just asking some random innocent question out of curiosity. He was going directly at Boosie's brand identity. Boosie had spent years positioning himself as the rapper who says what the whole hood is thinking. But nobody else got the guts to say the one who does not bite his tongue no matter what. So when arguably the biggest snitching allegation in recent hip-hop memory surfaced, and Boosie did not say a single word about it, Kodak wanted to know what was really good. The implication was loud and clear. Either Boosie was shook to speak on it, or his whole keeping it real act was selective, bold when aimed at somebody like Kodak, but conveniently silent when pointed at somebody with more clout or more dangerous connections in the streets. Boosie was not about to let that provocation just sit there. He responded with a lengthy post on X where he came at Kodak from multiple angles all at once. Boosie dismissed Kodak's comments and accused him of still being mad about previous remarks from years ago. He framed the entire exchange as Kodak being in his feelings because of unresolved resentment left over from the whole 6ix9ine era, not because of any real concern about accountability in the Young Thug situation. Boosie made it abundantly clear that he speaks on what he wants to speak on when he feels like speaking on it, and he does not take marching orders from Kodak or anybody else breathing. But Boosie did not stop at simply dismissing the man. He went straight for Kodak's jugular, claiming Kodak had checked peace. Kodak believed Boosie was violating a code that both of them should have lived by. Neither one of them was willing to budge even an inch on their position. Christmas Eve and the state of the war. The final major escalation before the February 2026 Texas incident came in January 2026, and it was delivered through WAX. The medium both of these men know better than anything else on earth, and the one that has historically turned hip-hop disagreements into permanent no-going-back grudges. On January 7, 2026, Kodak Black dropped a new joint titled Christmas Eve. The track was not subtle, it was not subliminal, and it was not open to interpretation. It contained direct name shots at Boosie with absolutely zero room for anyone to pretend it was aimed at somebody else. Kodak rapped lines, including FK that lame Nia Boosie looking down on a young Nia, getting Skrilla. I used to look up to Boosie. He hate, I got more bread, that old head stupid. Those bars were loaded with layers. The admission that Kodak once had mad respect for Boosie. The accusation that Bowie's whole motivation in the beef was jealousy over bread, and the declaration that whatever reverence he once held for the OG was officially dead and buried. The phrase, I used to look up to Boosie, took something that was one of genuine sentiment from a young cat who admired an elder in the game and weaponized it into a bar designed to cut deep. A way of telling Boosie that he had fumbled whatever standing he once had through his own actions. But the timing of the drop is what really sent Bowie into orbit. Christmas Eve hit the streets on January 7th, and Boo's sentencing for his federal gun charges was set for January 9th. Just 48 hours later, Bowie took the release date as an intentional act of disrespect, a calculated play to throw him off his mental game at the single most critical juncture of his legal situation. Whether Kodak had actually mapped out the timing with that intent, or whether it was pure coincidence, became completely irrelevant the second Boosie decided in his mind that it was personal. Boosie's clapback came the very next day, January 8th, on X. It was nuclear. He labeled Kodak a clout-chasing crackhead, a tag that fused everything Boosie had been hammering about Kodak's substance problems with the accusation that the entire disc record was motivated by a pathetic, desperate need for attention rather than any real smoke or genuine grievance. Boosie typed the whole thing in all caps, the digital equivalent of grabbing a bullhorn and screaming into somebody's face from across the block. And he held nothing whatsoever back. He told Kodak, "You know what I got going in to do this a day before court," making it crystal clear that he viewed the timing as a straight-up malicious move. He followed that salvo by declaring Kodak's music trash and his physical appearance even more washed, then capping it off by claiming Kodak's career was over, and that the only time anybody even thought about him was when he mentioned Boosie or Young Boy Never Broke Again. That last claim that Kodak needed Boosie's name in his mouth just to generate any type of buzz was a particularly lethal dagger, because it suggested the entire beef was manufactured from jump on Kodak's end. In Boo's telling, he was not engaged in a real rivalry with a worthy opponent. He was being used as content by somebody whose own career had flatlined so hard that the only play left was to attack a bigger name and ride the wave. Whether the streaming numbers and the charts actually backed that claim up was debatable, but as a rhetorical chess move, it was effective because it stripped Kodak of any legitimacy in the conflict. The January exchange set off widespread debates about the beef, with fans arguing over who means more to the South in hip-hop and whose career had the stronger foundation. When you look at the full body of work, the arguments were passionate and split right down the middle. Some fans saluted Bowie for keeping it real about Kodak's self-destruction, seeing his commentary as the kind of tough love that the culture desperately needs more from its elders. Others called Boosie straight up weird for his nonstop fixation on a younger man's personal life, pointing to Boosie's own long list of controversies and legal issues as evidence that he did not have the moral authority to be lecturing anybody about anything. Then came February 2026 and the Texas footage, which brought the entire story full circle. Kodak appeared disoriented at a show, had to be held up by security, and had reportedly pulled up 9 hours late. Boosie's comment, "Do need help for a fare," was 5 words that summarized 3 years of warfare. Every diss track, every social media post, every interview, every accusation about snitching and clout chasing and drug addiction, all of it boiled down to a single line that Boosie has been saying from the absolute jump. Boosie had earlier reacted to Kodak's viral video with concern, saying the rapper needs help. It was consistent with what he has maintained from the very first chapter of this entire beef. Boosie sees himself not just as somebody with smoke with Kodak, but as somebody sounding an alarm that nobody in Kodak's inner circle is willing to sound, whether that framing is a real deal or whether it's self. Serving depends entirely on which side of the fence you are standing on. As of right now, the beef between Boosie Badass and Kodak Black remains wide open with no resolution in sight. Kodak continues to tell Boosie to pipe down and mind his own business, and the internet continues to watch, react, and pick sides in a conflict that started over a collaboration with Rat and evolved into something far more layered. So what y'all think? Was Boosie speaking real out of concern for Kodak, or did he cross a line calling Kodak out in public? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. For more videos like this, click on this next card on your